Welcome back everyone. In this lesson we are going to discuss about pop-ups. So first of all, let's discuss what is a pop-up. A pop-up is a separate window that is displayed independently of the window that you are currently viewing. The specific case that we are treating over here is when a pop-up is opened after a user performs an action. It's also possible that a pop-up will appear randomly, and we are going to treat those cases in a separate lesson. Let's see the application that we are going to use to trigger this pop-up. We are going to use an application called Vatir. So this will be our starting point. And what we are going to do on this page is click the open window button over here. So if I click this, you can see that a new window will appear, this pop-up over here, and we have some information displayed over here. So the flow I'm proposing here would be to navigate to this page, click on this button, and then we will be redirected to this pop-up over here. We are going to do an assertion on some information over here, and then I'm also going to show you how to switch back to your original window and perform some actions over here. Okay, so let's get started. Going to my IntelliJ, and I'm going to create a new test class. I'm going to call this pop-up test. I'm going to add a new test over here. Let's call our test pop-up test. So I will not be using the Playwright runner for this. This will be a separate independent lesson. I'm going to write all the code over here. I'm not going to use the page object model for this. Okay, let's also add the test annotation. And let's start by defining our Playwright object. I'm going to do Playwright create. Then I'm going to define the browser. I'm going to use the Playwright object, use a Chromium browser, and I'm going to launch it. And I'm also going to want to have my browser, going to want it to be headless false. I want to see the browser. Okay. Now that we have our browser defined, let's create our page. I'm going to do browser new page. Remember that you can also define browser context, but for this example we don't need it. Okay, so we have our page created. Now what we need to do is to perform a navigate, and I'm going to navigate to the URL that I just shown you guys, which is this one. All is fine until now. Okay, and what I need to do now is perform the click on that button. Let's go over here and see how we can identify the button. Okay, I'm going to use the ID. So this button has an ID called new pop-up window. So I'm going to do page locator. I'm going to pass a CSS selector for this. Okay, this should be fine, and then I'm going to perform a click on it. And this should be enough to trigger our pop-up. Let's add a breakpoint over here and run our test in debug mode, just so we can see that the pop-up is actually opened. Okay, So as you can see, we've navigated to this page, click the button, and the pop-up was opened. Okay, so let's see how we can actually interact and catch this pop-up in our code. Now, Playwright has specific methods that will treat this pop-up case. The method that we are going to use is called wait for pop-up, and the way you use this method is you actually pass a lambda function to it, and inside the lambda function you define you use the code that will actually trigger your pop-up. So in our case, the code that's triggering our pop-up will be the click on that button, so the open window button. And what this method will do, it will return an instance of the pop-up as a page. So we can do here page, call our page pop-up, and what will happen is when the user will click the new pop-up window button, Playwright will know to wait for the pop-up, meaning the display of the new window, and it will return this pop-up page that will help you interact with that page. And this will act as a normal page as you've seen before. So right now we are in the stage where our pop-up was opened. So we have this new window open, and we want to do an assertion to check that we are indeed on this page. So let's see what we can use over here. Let's try to look inside this table. I'm going to use this ID axis example. So I can now use the pop-up page, do locator, use the ID axis example to identify that element, that table, like so. And I said that I want to do an assertion. I'm going to use the assertion library from Playwright. I'm going to do assert that. I'm going to pass the locator over here, the locator for the table inside my method. And then I'm going to do, let's also import this. I'm going to do an assertion to check if my table contains specific text. And let's fetch some text from our table. So let's use this over here, Hugh Glory. Okay, perfect. So what we've done so far is we've identified our pop-up, and we did an assertion on the new window to check that this table contains this text. So this will assure us that we have landed on the correct page. Let's run our test so far. So my expectation would be that this passes successfully until here. I'm going to do a debug again. Okay, let's run it till the end. So the test is successful for now. And I also promised you guys that I'm going to show you how you can switch back to the original page, which is called page. So the way you do that is page, bring to front. Let's run our test again. I've added a breakpoint when we do our assertion, and then I'm going to show you what bring to front does. This will basically switch the focus back to the original starting window. So at this point we are on our pop-up. We will be doing the assertion that this table contains this text. Okay, let's move to the next. Okay, so the next step. So the assertion has passed, and then we are going to bring to front our original page. So we are going to switch back to our original page. We are no longer on this one, on the pop-up. We are now on the original page, and let's try to input some information over here. I'm going to use the first name input field over here. I'm going to use this ID to identify it. So in order to interact with that, we need to use page, which is the first page we defined. And I'm going to do locator pass the ID. And then let's try to fill some information. Let's write Playwright inside that field. Okay, I'm going to stop my test again, and I'm going to leave the breakpoint over here. And my expectation is that the first name field on the original page is also will have this Playwright value now. Okay. So basically what we did in this test, we've navigated to our entry point, our test page. We've triggered a pop-up event by clicking the open window button, which will open that table page. We fetched the pop-up using the wait for pop-up method from Playwright, and using this new page we did an assertion based on this table over here. We checked for specific text, then we brought our original page to front, and then we've inputted some information in the first name input field. Okay guys, this was all for this lesson. See you in the next one.